So I found this article about the 4 misconceptions about autism. And number 1 was this. And it's kind of sad, actually. It's actually kind of sad. So, yeah, number 1 would be autism used to be rare, but now it's quite common. Yes. It's so common that in the 1970s, there was 1 out of 10,000 children that had autism, and now it is 1 into 68 right now. Now, has it become more common? No, there's nothing more common about it. What's happening is there's more diagnosis and more science is available, and people are discovering new things about the brain, and they're conducting more studies now, and things are getting better and brighter for the autistic community. And then this is always something that has always showed up, and this started in probably the 1990s, was that autism is caused by vaccines. And it was thought that the metal that was in the vaccines would cause autism. You know, sometimes there are these people that say, I have autism, and it seems like, oh, yes, you know, you're just doing it because it's trendy, right? Or how did you get they didn't just all of a sudden get autism. They got an autism diagnosis, which they weren't aware of. They either didn't know that they had it, or they didn't get the support they needed. Maybe autism did not exist when they were kids. Maybe they live in a foreign country where autism is considered to not exist anyway. Or perhaps it's just that, for whatever reason, nobody told them. Yeah, it's one of those things. So you don't all of a sudden get autism. You can't just drink something like a baby formula, or take Tylenol, or do anything to cause it, because it is developmental disability, which means development is in the word, which means you get it when you develop within the womb, inside of your mummy. When you are growing in your mummy's tummy, in mama, you are developing the autism. Now, for something to cause your brain to be completely rewired, which is possible in some cases, you can rewire your brain, but we're talking about the complete reconstruction of your brain. And really the only way to give somebody autism would be if we could potentially perform a brain transplant. Nobody's ever accomplished that yet. They're getting there, but essentially one of these days we will have brain transplants. I think that's rather morbid, but maybe one day somebody will donate their brain. And yeah, just imagine, what if all the autistic people get harvested for their brains? Like, there's none that exist anymore because their brains are harvested in jars. Because everybody wants to be autistic, you know. So, let's hope that there's not any brain transplants, okay? But the whole thing is with the brain, and this is a general idea, brains that are neurodivergent have more brain cells, and therefore have more connections. So, there's a lot more going on than, say, a neurotypical brain, and as I said, there might have been more that's discovered, and there's might be more that I just don't know, and you can correct me, and you can say, Kelsey, are you aware of this? And I'd be saying, no, tell me more, please. Tell me, please tell me more. But yes, there's no way that autism can be really, you could probably get ADHD later on, but autism is usually something that you are born with infancy, and the only reason it's not diagnosed is not because it wasn't there, it's because the symptoms weren't showing. the symptoms weren't showing. The brain wasn't developed enough yet for them to show signs of autism. So when you go on and you're like, oh, was it their diet? Was it something I fed them? Was it the lead in the paint? What did we do? Don't worry. It's probably just your genetics. Your grandmother, your mother, somebody had a neurodivergent gene, and we're able to isolate these genes, which may actually in the future help us prevent certain diseases, because we will look at people's genes and we'll isolate it and we'll say, "Ooh, well, you're 60% likely to have a autistic child. Would you like to go ahead and have a child?" Yes, definitely. So, yeah, we could do that. Then it would be like Gattaca with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. Yeah, we'll just, we'll think that wouldn't that be sad if that was the future, where it was just like autism was like or ADHD was a burden to society? That would be like backwards. Just go backwards in time. Yeah, like, isn't that funny though? The further we go into the future, kind of the more backwards we get in some aspects. It's like, we had records at one time, and now we have DVDs, which is like literally the same thing, except it's smaller. It's smaller. Let's just do it again, but let's make it smaller. Okay, it's not the same. Okay, never mind. Don't listen to me. So no, it's not that it's not common. It's just that we have better doctors and better science now. Yes, yes. And this is my personal favorite. This is what I grew up my entire life. It's called People with Autism Lack Empathy. Oh, I love this one. This is so much fun. This is literally was my mantra. It wasn't mine. It was my abuser's mantra. You are lazy. You are selfish, and you have no empathy because of your autism. Little did I know that I actually have empathy. And a lot of autistic people do have empathy because they experience emotions on a whole new level. And they experience it all the time. And it looks like it can look like mood swings, essentially. It can look like total mood swings. It's not mood swings. It's not hormones. Hormones don't necessarily, I hate to tell you this, but hormones can get you very far. But they don't all of a sudden give you the strength to throw a desk at a wall. If you're doing that, there's something else going on. Seriously, everybody's like, oh, they're disturbed. No, it's just hormones. It's just hormones. They're teenagers. Oh, they're depressed? We'll give them some Zoloft. It'll just be fine. As they cut themselves in their room. I'm not selfish. It's like, oh, yes, that's going to be great. It's going to be great. That's fantastic. You just caused more damage. And really ignoring autism is really the worst thing you can do. Do you know what happens when you try to repress autism? You get somebody, you know, the Incredible Hulk? You know how he gets angry and he gets really big and green and throws things? You would be better getting the Hulk angry than getting an autistic person angry. You get in their face, you ignore them, you tell them to shut up, you keep doing that and doing that over and over again and violating them and doing whatever it is, you're going to have an explosion on your hands. You really are. You're going to have a very huge explosion. And I can tell you this, that these children are not mentally disturbed. They're angry because they're not being heard and they're not being seen and they're not being understood. And I think anybody, even someone neurotypical, if they were treated like they were some sort of vermin that should be shoved into the corner. I think don't you think you would be angry too? Yeah, yeah. So yes, that would be kind of angry. Now I'm not making fun of people that mutilate themselves. Obviously, that is I really have no judgment for people that do that, but I do believe that there's a reason for that, and that is built up frustration. You think to yourself, you think, what would I do? And I've been in situations where I've been pretty close to, you know, doing something to myself. Not suicide per se, but, the cutting stuff. And I thought, I could really, you know what I could do? I could hurt somebody, you know? Like, I'm looking at the knife in the drawer. I could hurt somebody, but you know what? I don't have the propensity to hurt anybody. So you know what? I would rather hurt myself. Rather hurt myself. So that's why we hit ourselves. That's why we hit ourselves. We hit ourselves because we are emotionally aware of things. We are so emotionally aware. You ever know? You think that because we don't have emotions, first, we don't have empathy. First of all, empathy is a survival mechanism. If you don't know what someone is saying by their 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 body language or there's certain things like this, you don't know what they're doing. What do? You feel things. You have to feel the room. You have to read the room, so to speak. You're saying, okay, what's going on? Okay, their aura is telling me I should back the fuck up. Yeah, okay. Okay, let's go back into my room and let's come back in now. Okay, good. And so I actually feel things that people feel. I am a empath. I will feel things if somebody is being hurt, especially emotionally. So if somebody comes out and starts screaming, and that person is somebody that I care about, I will feel it. I will feel as if that person, that verbal attacker, is attacking me. I once talked to this friend of mine. Well, we just met actually, and it was a video chat. It was private, and I said, and we hit it off because it turns out we were both born in '94, and we had similar interests, and it was cool. She was a Christian, I was a Christian. It was cool, and we just hit it off. And immediately I just made that connection with her, and she texted me and she said, I have a headache, and she says, and so 10 minutes later go by, and I text her back and I say, I have a headache too. And you're thinking, that can't be possibly true. No, I feel people's pain. I really do. I feel people's pain. And then I have my own emotions it's like a roller coaster ride. It's like, and then it's like that. And then I feel their emotions, but then I also feel the anger of the person that is screaming or yelling or doing whatever they're doing. And it's really tricky when there are two people that I love very much and they are arguing or they're yelling and screaming at each other or they're doing whatever it is. They're trying to express themselves and it's very loudly. So yeah, I get emotionally burnt out, and I can tell you a lot of my depression is caused by emotional exhaustion because I've spent all my energy absorbing all the energies in the room. So yeah, they do. And you know why people say they don't have empathy? You know why? Because in the 1990s, the first newspaper article that was done ever said that people with Asperger's syndrome are cruel and heartless. Now, obviously, someone who wrote that, we're just going to assume that it was the time in which they lived and the fact that there wasn't much known about that. But they obviously did not spend the day with a nonverbal autistic person because do you really want to know what that's like? Okay, well, I'll give you a description. So there's somebody that's waving their arms like this and doing that, and I'm not being ridiculous. This is actually what they do. This is actually, they'll do this sometimes. They will also hit themselves. They'll hit themselves, and I'm not talking about we're not like that, but 2 times. I'm talking about like 10 million times until their face is completely red and bloody. Yeah, yeah. And they often don't get a lot of sleep. Children who have autism sometimes do not sleep because there's just too much going on. They're very picky about what they eat. They will sometimes have these meltdowns, which look like tantrums a little bit, but they're not. It's because of the fact that they can't communicate. But if you think about it, if you were all of a sudden somebody tore out your tongue and your voice box and you couldn't communicate, I think you would probably be very frustrated, wouldn't you be? Yeah. But because someone doesn't appear to have emotions, don't think for a moment that they don't. First of all, I can tell you that people who come into the room and they're like, ah, yeah, I'm so excited. And I'm like, okay, I'm happy for you, I guess. You don't look happy. I'm processing your emotions right now, and I'm processing my own. I'm sorry if I didn't meet in the exact enthusiasm as you. I'm sorry if I did not jump for joy. I'm sorry if I did not clap my hands and scream like a frickin' fangirl. I am absorbing your emotions. I'm absorbing the information you're telling me and your excitement, and I acknowledge it, and I am okay with it. Okay, I I'm experiencing it this slowly. Sorry, sorry about that. So, but you have to remember, within a lot of families, and this is encouraged within schools, within beauty pageants, with just normal homes, is that you are supposed to suppress your emotions. You're not supposed to, do certain things, and it gets us to be kind of self-conscious. There's etiquette. There's of course that's valuable to be polite, but then it gets to a whole nother level where it's like, don't do that. I'll think you're weird. What? What do you mean? Don't do that. You think you're weird. And yeah. So yeah, I had a little bit of a short fuse, I'm gonna say, when I was a teenager, because I didn't know stimming was a good thing. I didn't even know stimming existed. And so yeah, I had some explosions here and there. I never hurt anybody. I didn't hurt myself, I don't think. Which is a miracle. But yeah. Yeah. And one of the things about that is, yeah, I think it's very insulting, especially when you become an adult and people still think, oh, it's hormones. I'm like, it's hormones, okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'm a woman, and that's the common misconception. It's a stereotype that if you're a woman, you're over emotional. Uh, so if a guy spends all day fixing his car, what do you call that? And then he gets mad because it falls apart. He gets the IKEA furniture. He doesn't read the instructions. He puts it together, and then it falls apart, and then he gets angry and starts punching things. Um, what do you call that? Do you say hormones? No, you just say, oh, that's a man. That's what you do. That's what you do. That's not only ableist, but that's that's not ableist. That's sexist. Oh wow, sexist, isn't it? And to assume that guys don't have hormones either. It's called testosterone. Yeah, yeah. They men make testosterone, and it's a hormone. Gets them real jacked up and angry about things. Yes, it is responsible for them sexually. like and within sexual performances, but it also has to do with when they cannot seem to comprehend why not something didn't work when when they didn't follow the instructions. I'm not saying all guys are like that, but everybody has hormones, okay? Yeah, everybody has hormones, okay? You can say, but I'm asexual. That's fantastic. I'm really happy for you. I support you, love you. I'm there for you 100%, but please don't make that an excuse. Don't make that an excuse. You still have hormones. You might not be attracted to anybody. You might not be attracted to anyone in your life. And that's normal, okay? That's normal for you. That's normal for you. It makes you happy. It brings you inner peace. Then live the best life you can. Go for it. But doesn't matter what sexuality you identify with or what gender you are, you're gonna have hormones. It happens. It happens. And yes, hormones do affect the way that you think. They affect the way that you think. And sometimes they affect a man in certain ways. And I think sometimes it affects possibly some of their logic. I think logically they're on the right road. I think logically that men are very good logical thinkers. They have a unique way of thinking that women don't necessarily think like. They have wonderful gifts when it comes to problem solving. They do, and there are certain things that men can accomplish mentally that a woman wouldn't necessarily know how to do because she's a woman and she is meant to do other things. She is built for other purposes, to have children, but also that doesn't make her any less. It doesn't make her any dumber. It doesn't make her any more superior at all. I do believe that the two are equal. I think everybody should be equal. But that's the case with that. But autistic people do have empathy. If you think that they don't, you are basing that information on something that is very outdated. And when I'm mean outdated, 30 years outdated. Came from the 1990s, okay? And Asperger's really isn't even a syndrome now. It is now just the spectrum. They've changed it now. It's no longer Asperger's. It's the spectrum, which people are kind of not really happy with for some reason. But yes, and then there's another thing. The goal should be to make autistic children indistinguishable from their peers. Oh yes, let's go. Are we gonna go there now? We can go there. So yeah, there used to be this method, and it's still used to this day. It was part of a program of early development. So literally, what you do is you teach your child to have a certain characteristics and attributes and certain actions and behaviors, and you train them similar to how you would train a dog, so that they will appear to be normal. Oh, what could go wrong? You want to know why teenagers with autism, teenagers on the spectrum commit suicide? Just think of it this time. There's a child out there, a teenager, has autism. They are not aware of it. And they're told, buck up, act normal, do whatever it is you need to need to do to make other people feel comfortable. And it gets to that point where you just can't pretend anymore. You can't pretend that you're like everybody else. You can't pretend. Gets so old after a while. You can't just pretend, like, let's play pretend. No, let's not. Let's pretend that I don't give a shit. So, but no. You have a child that wants to express themselves, that wants to be themselves, that wants to embrace who they are, but they are not allowed to do that. And then you put bullying into that, and it's like, great, the world hates me. Why should I exist? That does some serious damage there. You're creating, by teaching these children certain behaviors that will pass them off as normal. What you're doing is you're encouraging them to repress who they are, repress who they were born to be. And that is exhausting. It's exhausting to pretend to be somebody you're not. And it is, when you are not able to express yourself, it causes something. I believe that it causes a form of PTSD. So you are not only encouraging repression, you are creating PTSD. And what does PTSD lead to? It leads to suicide. And that's not a joke. Yeah. It leads to cutting, it leads to other things, other maybe mutilation methods. Because nobody hears them, nobody sees them, nobody understands, they are invisible. They are invisible and they are hiding in plain sight, so to speak. It's like when they're doing really well, people will pay attention to them. But when they're doing horribly, it's like, you little bitch. You're selfish, you're lazy, you're not applying yourself. And you have this vacant look on your face, like you just don't give a shit. Like, I don't think you even care. You don't care about me, you don't care about this family, and you don't care about getting your grades up higher. You're just doing this to piss us off. You're doing it because you can. Now, is this abusive? Yes. I do believe that these things are abusive, and that is what Autism Speaks does. They get the children, they isolate them, they put them in a torture chamber, and they tell them, okay, what you gonna do for the cookie? Are you gonna be good? And then they'll sit there and cry, and because, first of all, they don't want to do the thing because it's not fun, and they're looking for their parents. They're looking around, they don't see them because it's like the double-sided glass. It's the double glass, only the parents can see them, but the child can't see them, so it's difficult. And so yeah, they practically just torture them with probably toxic positivity as much as they can, and they brainwash them into exuding certain neurotypical behaviors. You're teaching them how to be actors, essentially. You should just take them to acting school. At least you could express yourself, right? Like you could just express yourself. You could just be a character. If you're angry, you can just put that anger in there. That could be why don't you just sign them up for drama, okay? That would be better thing. They could be an actor, they could make lots of money. Gosh, that would be fantastic. They'll live in a freaking mansion, they'll live in the Beverly Hills, okay? But you're asking them to do that. You're asking them to just be, okay, just be a robot. I'm sorry, but children aren't robots. They aren't computers that you can program. They are people. They have souls and they have minds that probably work differently than you do, or probably they have a very unique mind. It's like a fingerprint. Everybody's mind is unique. It looks the same, but it's different. So, and it's the whole method. It's like what the schools teach, where it's like, We only do straight. We do straight. We don't go over here. We don't go over there. We don't go up there. We don't go over there. We don't go over there. And if you don't, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? We're going straight. You're not applying yourself. You're not just so selfish. You're doing this. Piss me off. I'm just cutting paper. Jeez, I didn't know this was a crime here. Okay. Big brother. I'll hail the Gestapo. I'm sorry, I didn't know that we were in a fascist society. Fascism would be a little bit better, but I didn't realize that we were socialites. I didn't realize we were in Russia right now. I didn't know we were in the gulag. I'm sorry, I will correct my behavior and I will discipline myself next time I show an emotion. Yeah, so you're wondering why I don't show emotions? Oh, well, maybe because I was punished for showing emotions. Maybe that's why I don't show emotions. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we all one way or another, parents have encouraged us to repress. You know, when you're sitting there bleeding or whatever, just imagine if you're hurting and you're like, I'm hurting, you know. So, if you're hurting emotionally and people tell you to repress it, just imagine when something really big happens when they're adults, like when they really need help and they really need medical attention or they're bleeding or something's going on. They're gonna feel that ashamed to ask for help. They're gonna feel ashamed to get the help that they need because they've been told their whole life, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just making it up. You're just doing, and then there's another thing. You're just embracing a trendy disorder. It's not, first of all, it's not a disorder. It's not a disease. It's something we were born with, and it was given to us by our parents or our ancestors or somebody in the family. It's not like that. So, and I'm sorry, I was not making fun of anybody that does anything to hurt themselves, because I have known people that have done that, and I really empathetically, on an empathic level, I connect with a person like that, because I understand that that's not always a mentally disturbed thing, and I think a lot of people, when they see people that do that, you know, cutting themselves and doing that, that's not so much, it has been labeled as mentally disturbed, and it's like, when you're stressed, it'll make you do incredible things, destructive things, horrible things, where you don't take care of yourself, you don't go to the doctors, you don't shower, you don't do anything to help yourself, and you are so ashamed and guilty of who you are that you will allow yourself to be completely isolated. That's what teaching repression does. You are literally setting up your child to have a torturous existence on this planet. An existence, it's not even living, it's just existing. You created a zombie. If that's what you want a zombie, you want a robot, maybe you shouldn't have children. Maybe you should have dogs or cats, or maybe you should just stick to your computers, because a child is not an object, it is a person. It is going to bloom and blossom and grow and evolve and become maybe even better than you are. So you want to encourage them in everything that they do. And if that means that they're going to look weird or they're going to look strange, they're going to be considered a freak. You can do that. I understand why parents do this. They don't want them to be treated differently, but really, when people start treating them differently, you're preparing them. You're saying, okay, people treat you differently, but don't be discouraged. By encouraging them, these transitions, when they go to school, they won't be as traumatized. They won't have that PTSD. Possibly they won't try to commit suicide either. And I'm not being a judgmental or accusing anybody of anything. I know that there are parents out there that genuinely just want to help them and they just don't know how. And I understand, but it still hurts me to see that there are autistic people that are not getting their needs met, that don't have the support, that don't have it. And if you know somebody, whether it's your child, whether it's somebody that you know, be an encouragement to them. Try to help them embrace who they are, because that's important. They need to learn to love themselves. And by telling them to repress them, they're learning to hate themselves. They're learning, they're forming these thoughts that people hate them when they don't. The world might not be accommodating, but it's not all bad. Give them a good reason to exist. Give them a good reason to wake up in the morning. Give them something to look forward to. That's all I'm trying to say. I just want you to see your children and the people that you love as beautiful, and not to try to tell them to change just for the world. How many times have adults tried to change and they've lost themselves in the process? They've lost themselves in the system. They've lost themselves in the crowds. Don't set them up with the same life. Encourage them to do things that you never did. And I hope you all have a beautiful, blessed day. And I'm sorry if this was animated or I was being offensive or whatever. Please understand. I'm trying also, by being dramatic and being animated, I'm trying to show really the importance, and by over exaggerating, I'm trying to show the seriousness of the situation. The seriousness is really, it leads to the cutting, it leads to the hitting, and then it leads to suicide. So I just hope that we can do everything we can to prevent that, because the youth is literally our future. They're gonna make, if it weren't for the autistic community, there would be no technology. There would be nothing nice and shiny, no cars, nothing. None of that would be out there. So by encouraging them to be who they are, you're encouraging them to rock the world, to change it. Imagine what they can do with that mind of theirs, that hyper-focused drive. They're gonna do things. And the only thing that's keeping them from that is the environment, the energy, the positivity, the things that they grow up with. That's the only thing that's keeping them back. Don't be the thing that keeps them back. Be the thing that pushes them forward.